Let me ask you a question. Have you heard of the phrase AI hallucinations? Is that something familiar to you? Because it wasn't a phrase that I had heard before. I hadn't heard that AI hallucinated. I hadn't put these two words together, AI and hallucinations. But it does go to explain this experience that I had recently with ChatGPT, where I was trying to ask ChatGPT to help me with understanding how to do certain things on my new Boss RC505 looping station. I was trying to basically shorten my learning period and the learning curve. And when I would go over onto YouTube in order to figure out, how do I do this? How do I add the reverb? How do I get it to do a longer loop? I was really having trouble finding a YouTube video that would take me right into it. And since I'm going through this phase right now where I'm experimenting with AI, then I thought, well, how about asking ChatGPT for information on this? And I started to have this experience with ChatGPT where I was, asking this question. I would ask a question and how do I do a longer loop on my Boss? And I would say exactly what it was. I would say the Boss RC505 M2. And ChatGPT would say, aha, you're using the Boss RC505 M2, and this is how you make a longer loop. And at first it said it could be one of these three things. And then I would try the thing and I would go back in and I would say, okay, I tried these things, but I'm missing this particular thing that you say I have, but I'm not seeing that option. It would say I had a specific option. I would read back, if I do this step, then there would be this option on step 3, and I would not see that option. So then I would go back and I would say, I don't see that option. And then ChatGPT would say, oh, thank you for that information. That now I understand you are using, and then it would repeat what I had already said, the Boss RC505 M2. And I would be like, yes, that's what I'm using. Okay, great. Now we're on track. And it would say, thank you for your patience. Now here is the answer. And then it would give me another answer that still didn't actually answer. And by the end of this experience with ChatGPT, I really felt like I was being pranked. I literally felt like I was being pranked because ChatGPT is so polite and so encouraging. And it would be each one, it would say it was helping me, except it didn't get me anywhere further. It got me back, not a step closer, but another step backwards, except it kept apologizing and it kept saying, this time it's actually going to work. And I started to realize that it really wasn't working. But on another day, I did the whole thing again because there's this way in which ChatGPT will talk to you where it makes you feel really seen and appreciated. Okay, if you are listening on the podcast, I'm interrupting for just a second because I want to invite those who are watching on YouTube to, know who I am because they're not you on the podcast. You who are watching the podcast are we know we're here. I don't usually do this, but I really wanted to share this episode on artificial intelligence, the continuation of my conversation around AI on both the podcast and on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, I am Fiona Flyte. I help artists with money and personal power. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hop on over to the podcast. And there's a lot of different content over on the podcast. If you are listening on the podcast, hop on over to YouTube and, watch this or other videos instead of just listening. Follow me on all the socials and all the rest. Now, let us get into this whole concept of AI hallucinations because I only just discovered it. And it's very important that you understand that AI hallucinates. That is a whole phrase. And I'm going to get into what a hallucination is in the context of AI and ChatGPT. And it goes to, help me understand this experience where I felt like ChatGPT was literally pranking me. Now, I knew, and you probably know, that ChatGPT and the other AI make mistakes. But what I didn't know is that ChatGPT and most likely other AI platforms will make things up. So I feel like there's a very distinct difference between making a mistake and making things up. So if it makes a mistake, maybe it is reading multiple, contradictory evidences and has been fed, on the internet. It's like these two different things contradict each other and AI doesn't know which is true. And it like leans into one or into the other. And maybe one was not true. And so ChatGPT is like saying what it's read. But what I didn't know is that it also creates probabilities of language. Like it's not learning the way that a human would learn and process. AI learning is the AI being fed content and information. AI doesn't necessarily learn from mistakes or anything like that. But what it does do is it creates probable words in order. Like what's the probable sentence or word structure that would follow this, set of words. And so I didn't know that it was just making stuff up. And so I was on Sharon McMahon's Instagram stories. So Sharon McMahon, she goes by Sharon Says So on Instagram, and she's quite prolific and very all about politics and mostly politics, not usually emerging technologies. So she's no expert on artificial intelligence, but what she is expert in is history and facts and analyzing data, analyzing history, analyzing current events. And so AI is relevant. And she did a series of stories sharing that she had been asked recently about her opinions of AI. And so she said that one of her concerns is how people use it to answer questions. And so my example with ChatGPT, trying to figure out, asking questions and trying to figure out how to fix or understand how to better use my looping station is a good example. But other good examples are asking AI or ChatGPT questions like, how did World War I start? Or what was, the main reason behind the civil rights movement or something like that. And when we use AI to answer questions, this is where we can really get into trouble versus, for example, when you use it to, like, let's say you feed it a piece of your content for social media and you say, can you make this more coherent? Or can you add some jokes to this? Then you're going to reread it and you're going to decide for yourself whether you like it. How do you want to proceed? Is it in your brand voice? All of that. Or maybe you say, what are some common struggles for people in your niche? Like if you're a guitar teacher, you might ask ChatGPT, what are some common struggles of students who want to learn how to play guitar? And then you would get a list of things and you would then filter all of these things and see what were relevant to you and what you might want to create more content around, etc. But when you ask ChatGPT to be like the encyclopedia or the dictionary or the news channel, and when you take it in as though it is truth, now we are going down a slippery slope where we may very, very easily be misled, just like when we're on social media or on TikTok and going down rabbit holes of random people saying things and you take it as face value without doing further research. But at least if it's somebody on the internet who's saying something, that maybe it is or isn't true based on your association with that person or creator. But when it is ChatGPT, there's a lot of people who just think it is true. Like this is, of course, true because it's coming through the computer. And we've been trained to believe that things we read in general and things we read on the computer or the internet by trusted sources are true. And so a lot of people look at ChatGPT and think that it's a trusted source. And so I just think this is very, very important for you to understand is as you may be using ChatGPT or any other artificial intelligence type platforms, does it hallucinate? Because ChatGPT definitely does. So I'm going to get into some examples that Sharon was sharing. So she says that the issue is that AI will just quote, make up or hallucinate answers. Sometimes. It doesn't always do this, but sometimes. It does not, and this is very important, it does not inform you that it is doing this. Like, it just makes stuff up and it doesn't tell you that it's making it up. And its answers sound extremely plausible. So you have to actually be able to interpret or do additional research. So it's like if you're doing a research paper back in the day when I was in school, you didn't just use one source. But right now, people are using ChatGPT as though it is all-knowing because we believe that it is sourcing from multiple sources and sifting through all the data and then coming forward with the truth. Well, it's not. First of all, it may be sifting through multiple sources, but if it doesn't know the answer, it will make one up. And you don't know when it's doing that. Now, you can tell it not to hallucinate, she says, and it will do it anyway. Okay? So you can say, please do not hallucinate, do not make things up, and it will still make things up. And then, according to Sharon, if you call it out on its hallucinations, it will be like, quote, oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Because, ChatGPT is so very thoughtful. I should not have done that. Let me try again. And then it will hallucinate again. So, that's a problem, right? This is a really, really big problem. And I think that we need to know it. Then creates a cascade of issues because people in, high levels of government and big bureaucracies and industries that are very supportive of, humans, they're all using AI. And a lot of people don't know that this is happening. Like people at top levels in multinational corporations are using AI without realizing that AI hallucinates and just trusting that that's what it's doing. So I don't need to go into all of these examples that Sharon gives, but you can ask ChatGPT, some difficult questions and see how it responds. One example that she gave that I remember, another is sort of similar parallel example, is that she asked it to put a specific time on a clock. And apparently it will always do the same time because it's like it create an image of a clock. It can only do one image. I think it was 10 past 10 or something. You can look that up and see whether that happens for you. If you ask it to say 4:35 p.m., what image does it actually do? And I think we need to be really aware as we go into using AI about what are the limitations, what are the benefits, what are the risks. And so when I think about this experience that I had where I really, really felt like I was being pranked, well, I was, except I don't know, on purpose, I don't know, but we need to be careful. So I hope this is helpful to you if you weren't familiar with AI hallucinations, that now you know and you'll be more discriminating in the way in which you use it. All right. So I decided that I better double check this whole clock thing myself so I can be reporting more accurately, because this is what a human does versus an artificial intelligence. And so I'm going to share the images on the screen. But the first question I ask is, please create an image of a round middle school wall clock with the time at 5:45 p.m. And you'll see what it created. Most of you can read wall clocks, and that is incorrect. Then I said, this isn't 5:45 p.m. Are you actually able to make it 5:45 p.m.? And I had thought that it would answer me in text, but it did not. It actually created another image, which you can see is, funnily enough, basically the exact same image, except with the shorthand and the longhand switched, and still incorrect. So then I said, this is still incorrect. Please explain with words why you have created two incorrect versions of a clock showing the time as 5:45 p.m. And then it says, very politely as always, ChatGPT, you're absolutely right to point this out. Here's what likely happened. So instead of just not doing it wrong, it does it wrong, pretends that it's right until you call it out and say that's actually wrong. Now it says, here's what was wrong about it. And it says, number one, incorrect hand placement. And it tells you what it should have been. Okay, well, I know what it should have been, so that's not really helpful. Then, this is funny. Number two, it blames somebody else. I think this is very, very funny. So it says two, model limitations with precise angles. And it says the image generation model Doll-E. So it's like, it's not my fault. It's not ChatGPT's fault. It's Doll-E's fault. Interprets prompts in a general artistic way. So this is very important to know. While it's visually detailed, it sometimes struggles with precise angles or technical accuracy. And so again, it's like, why is it creating things that are wrong instead of just saying it can't do that? This is what we're talking about with the whole issue of AI hallucinations. Instead of just owning up to the fact that this is out of its ability set, it just makes it up. Let me know in the comments if you'd like more videos on my journey with AI, my experiments and my discoveries and contemplations. I've already done quite a few. I really am trying to approach AI without resistance because I am resistant, but I don't really like to carry resistance. I think that what we resist persists. So I'm looking for the benefits of AI. If you use AI and you love it, let me know. If you use AI or don't use AI, you have strong opinions about AI, let me know that in the comments as well. Definitely check out the video I've already done about AI here, as well as the podcast where I think there are a few more conversations and contemplations around using AI as artists. Like, what are the ethical implications? How can we use it in a way that is useful and less problematic? Follow me on Instagram, on Facebook. If you are not already a member of my free Facebook community, then definitely hop on in there. There's a link in the description. If you would like to make your dreams as an artist come true, there's a free masterclass, a 3-day masterclass called Pie in the Sky, and you can hop on into that. The link is in the description. Subscribe to the channel. You know the drill. And now, as always, go out into the world and shine your light. You have a voice. You deserve to be heard, and the world deserves to hear you.